You're listening to the Major Pod Network, the only place where your favorite toy store, bar, arcade, and arena are all on the same block. Scratch that major itch.
Today on the Game Marks podcast, we celebrate our 100th episode by remastering WCW vs. NWO World Tour, which was our very first episode. All this, plus gaming news, GMP64, and a remastered Clash at the Feast. Plug in, put on those nostalgia goggles, because this week's Game Marks podcast starts now.
And now, the Game Marks.
Welcome for the 100th time to the Game Marks podcast presented by the Major Pod Network. I'm the man they call Johnny Clash.
And I am Mr. Anything is Feasible. And you know what? Because it's the 100th episode, and we're going back to a game that started my first season of Clash at the Feast when you're reigning, defending, undisputed Clash at the Feast champion, George Feis. And today, like we mentioned, we're playing the Remastered, but not actually remastered. We're remastering it, kind of. We're going back to our very first episode, WCW vs. NWO World Tour.
I could not be more excited to play this because the first time around, I think we were a little, you'll hear us talk to, actually, guys, we have a guest today. We have WCW Worldwide. You've heard us talk about Brian for the longest time. We praise him. We love his products. He has actually been on here before in his voice at least, but I explained to him how I guess we didn't really have a direction for the Play It Forever Future Endeavor. We didn't have rules. We didn't know kind of what we were judging, and now we have a bit of a clearer eye for that. We know what we're looking for, and I'm very excited to play this game again. But George, as always, we love to hear from you guys, so please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and make sure to subscribe and rate this podcast wherever you choose to listen, and join the conversation on social media at Game Marks Pod and on Patreon at patreon.com/GameMarksPod. George, 100. We have sat here
100.
We have sat here 100 times. I have to say right now, I went back, I listened to our first episode. I barely made it through the whole thing. It was brutal, which is why we tell people, start somewhere else. Don't start at the beginning. Go back after, which is why we're remastering this episode to begin with. This game deserves more than we gave it. And hey, maybe we'll go back and we'll do this for a few other of the earlier episodes.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're not going to go back and do this for every single game, but there are some ones that maybe, we're not so fairly judged the first couple of months of the podcast, and, maybe they need to get another look, a reevaluation, a remastering, if you will.
Yeah, and going back, me and you, we didn't really know each other too well the first episode. I think we kind of just said, okay, go. I'm actually going to post in our Patreon. We post the notes every Tuesday. I'm going to post these notes too to see what, they were like 2 pages long. Now we're working with like 9, 10, 11 pages, pictures, everything you want. Like we know what we're going to explain to you guys. Also, I'm sorry for my voice. I'm a little under the weather, but Hall's, what are these? Hall's honey relief are my lifeline right now. But
so you know what? Maybe I'll do a little bit of the heavy lifting. I'll read the roster of the arena, stuff like that. The way you can rest your voice or whatever you need to do.
Hey, wait, but it's the 100th episode. I mean, I usually carry the weight, so I'm going to keep doing it for the number 100 too.
All right. Well, listen, I wanted to say this. Usually we get sappy around the year.
I was going to say, here we go. George is getting sappy.
Yeah, so usually I save the sappiness for August for our yearly anniversary. But I gotta say, man, 100 episodes, man, it's pretty nuts. We've come a long way. I think it's really cool to go back, like you said, listen to the first episode, see how far we've come. But not only in the quality of the show itself, in terms of like the structure, but also like the audio quality and how much better you've gotten at editing over the past 2 years, and how just the whole structure of the show has changed. And We got a Patreon now. We've got a regular Twitch streams. We've got a side show that has a side show with GMP64 and Game Over. We've started so many things now, and it's just cool to see where we're at. But getting that sappy stuff out of the way, there's two things I want to say. One,
You love me.
I already know what the second game I want to go back into a remastered of is.
Okay.
And it is. We'll talk a little bit about that later. And the second thing I want to talk about is Raw 2, the game that we played last week. How do you feel about it? Had some time to let it marinate over the last week. Are you sticking with your rating?
All right, Raw 2. One of my, I guess I could say childhood, one of my teenage favorites. Did it hold up? We played it forever, I think, because it is... All right, I'm going to explain this right now. I'm going to use an analogy from my life. When I was in my second year of college, I was doing a 2-year graphic design program. And when it came time to submit your portfolio, I forgot. So it was like the midpoint. I didn't submit a portfolio. I literally printed out images and just handed them to the teacher. You could imagine what my grade was there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So now it's finals time. Now it's time for the real portfolio. And boy, did I go all out on this thing. I made this thing sparkle, and I only got like whatever passing was, like 65. I only got that because the teacher said this is the highest amount of points I could give someone. So I feel like our rating for Raw 2, we gave it the highest amount of points we could give it to pass. I'm still not sure it's a good game.
Oh, it's listen, for what it is compared. So this is again something that we can elaborate on now that we're going back, over the first episode. The rating system has been the same, but the meaning has changed. So it's still play it forever, future endeavor. It's what it's been since the beginning, but now it's not so much, we're saying that this is a bad game or a good game because of how it compares to every other wrestling game in the history of existence. It is this a good game for the console that it's on compared to the other games that were released for that console, and also taking into consideration the time that the game came out. Because obviously,
right,
you go back like we're going to do, and we're going to play World Tour again today. That is by no means going to hold up to a 2K game graphically. It's just, if you're a person who plays a video game for graphics and to see how realistic things are, you're going to hate World Tour because the people that they're supposed to be looking like, it doesn't even look like that.
Right, yeah. I understand.
So that meaning has changed over the course of 100 episodes, but now we kind of have a better idea, and we explain our reasoning behind our rating every week. So with that said, I'm assuming that we're both going to be sticking with our rating because we're not allowed to change once we're locked in. But why don't you take us through what's happening this week on Patreon?
This week on Patreon, of course, Monday, you get this episode ad-free. Now, on Tuesday night, you will get GMP64's sister show, Game Over, and you get these beautiful show notes in your hand. Now, on Wednesday, last week, George played Legends of Wrestling for Future Endeavored, the show where we go back and we replay the games that we future endeavored. This week is a doozy. This week is a big one. I go back and I play Fire Pro Wrestling Returns. I cannot wait to do this one.
I cut you off. That's it. That's Remastered episode 2.
That okay, acceptable. I am all for that.
Johnny Fire Pro. I want to go back and I want to replay the first or one of the first Fire Pro games that we played on the podcast.
It is the first, so I'm all about it. You kind of threw me into the woods there and told me to find my way back home, and I hated it. So
look how far you've come now.
Yeah, I'm excited to go back and play that again this week on Patreon. And on Friday, of course, Clash and Burn every week. We had the commish, David C. Anderson, 2 weeks ago. Before that, we watched through my first match, and I gave the whole rundown of the experience. But join today. We have low tiers, high tiers. Check out all of the fun content we have, including our favorite Discord server. Now, George, take us through this month's Streamer Spotlight.
Oh, the streamer spotlight, friend of the show, Yoko from Super 7. If you don't know her, you should go and find her on Twitch, twitch.tv.
If you don't know, Yoko.
Now you Yoko. Twitch.tv/livin la vida Yoko. And listen, she wanted me to let you know.
Me?
That
or them?
Everyone.
Oh, okay.
Everyone who's hearing this right now. She's got giveaways coming up. She has sponsor or sub streams planned. She's got a lot of things that are happening. And the only way to win these giveaways, get new and exciting news on things that are happening in the world of literally, she covers so many different things. She does gameplays. She has chill streams where she does art stuff. She's a friend of the art community, and we love her. We think that she's great. Make sure to go and follow her and subscribe to her today. Twitch.tv/LIVIN LAVIDAYOKO. Livin' La Vida Yoko.
All right, but this week, GMP64 episode 23, guys. You only have 3 more months. That's 3 more pay-per-views, 3 more months of weekly episodes before the big one, before WrestleMania, before it all comes to a head. This month is the Royal Rumble. We're going to see who goes on and faces the champions. I love it. It's youtube.com/GameMarks Podcast. Get on board today.
Now, speaking of our YouTube channel, when we hit 400 subscribers on that YouTube channel, we will be doing the video game history of the Legion of Doom / the Road Warriors, Animal and Hawk. We are currently at 310. We are so close to being able to do this. And listen, the last 2 times that we did this for The Undertaker and Bret Hart, it was some of the most fun experiences that we have had, because we get to go through literally every video game that they've been in, games that we've played, games that we haven't played yet, games that we've never even heard of or seen. So it's a very eye-opening and fun experience. So 400 subs on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/GameMarksPodcast. All right, so that's all the catch up and what's happening from last week and what's going on this week, but there's one more thing to cover, John, and that's the gaming news. What do you say?
Up next, the gaming news.
Are you looking to get a better grip on life? How about your video games? Well, VGF Gamers are the largest silicone gaming brand in the USA. They have a variety of different and unique skins for the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One controllers and consoles. Check out their products at VGFgamers.com and use code GameMarks to receive 15% off your order at checkout. That's GAMEMARKS at checkout. VGF Gamers. Better grip, better style.
Xbox employed a clever bit of a cross-platform marketing this week by showing someone using a non-Xbox controller to play an Xbox Game Pass game. The ad made sure to bring attention to this fact too by directly calling out that you can now use all different kinds of controllers to play games on other devices, which essentially means you could break all the old rules of console gaming at once. Now, they posted a tweet with a little bit of a song. Now, look at this photograph. It's one of our cloud gaming ads. Do you see what's in those hands? It's a controller from a different brand. Okay, back to gaming news. PlayStation's latest State of Play event was focused on third-party and indie games, but Death Stranding did make an appearance. Sony and Kojima Productions showed off more info on Death Stranding Director's Cut and, more importantly, announced its release date of September 24th and will be available exclusively to the PS5. Maximum Games has announced several new physical collector's editions for the popular video game Among Us in partnership with Inner Sloth, Dual Wield Studio, and Robot Teddy. These are the 3 flavors of Maximum Games physical editions: Crewmate, Imposter, and Ejected. Notably, these physical editions are for PS4, PS5, Nintendo Switch, and Xbox One. Pre-orders are live for all editions at Best Buy and Amazon, though the Nintendo Switch versions were not active at the time of this recording. And that's all the gaming news we have this week. Check back next week. Are you a Nickelback fan, George?
How did I know that this was going to be the thing that you talked about?
I'm just wondering.
So I don't know what's happening over that, because obviously we're recording that and I just had to hear it. But in my head, there is a beautiful copyright-free MIDI version of the opening guitar from Photograph by Nickelback playing behind you as you sing that.
We'll see what happens. We'll see what I can make happen here.
That's what's happening in my head right now. I just hear like do 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 do.
Oh, I thought it was a monkey hitting cymbals, but all right.
Is that what you think of Nickelback?
No, I was talking about what's inside your brain. All right, but up next, the question of the week.
100 episodes. You're supposed to be nice to me by now.
Hey yo, Game Marks. You know who I am? And I'm here to tell you about our pro wrestling tees and TeePublic stores. Now let me tell you something, Game Marks. Not only do we have the most radical shirts over at Pro Wrestling Tees, we also have a TeePublic store with even more designs, dude. So head on over to ProWrestlingTees.com/GameMarksPod and TeePublic.com/user/GameMarksPod, because when you're GMP for life.
All right, listen, guys. Now is the best time to buy a shirt from us. ProWrestlingTees.com. We are currently moving all of our shirts over to Pro Wrestling Tees. We're going to be using our TeePublic as more of a accessories. It's where you can get your stickers, some cell phone cases, things like that. But
yeah, your Undertaker shirts that get taken down, your Bret Hart shirts, all that. Yeah.
Yes. The things that Pro Wrestling Tees won't let us put up there. That's where they'll live. But listen, guys, the question of the week, here we go. It's a weekly segment where you ask us a question on any form of social media at GameMarksPod. And if we pick your question, you get a Game Marks Podcast prize pack. Last week, the question was a good one. What is your go-to non-grappling wrestling move in a video game? And I said I'm a big fan of a super kick. I'm also a big fan of that Brock Lesnar.
Oh,
the
yeah.
first time that Brock Lesnar clothesline was in the game, I thought that was always good.
Oh, yeah.
But we got some good answers on social media, too. Dancing Hot Dog says the discus punch or the Malenko leg lariat, which is funny because I was just saying how much I hate the discus punch. I feel like it is so easily avoidable and the animation usually is so long.
I agree. You know what I forgot to say? The Perry Saturn leg sweep.
Oh, the Perry Saturn leg sweep.
How could I forget that? That's like my move.
I'm a big fan of the Scott Steiner double leg.
Oh, yeah.
Richard Cue at SheepFM on Twitter says, a kick to the gut.
You know, there were some games where it was like, I think the SmackDown games maybe, where down...
The kick to the gut needed to be like the setup for your finish.
It was like down and left or something, and then the kick, and it was like a side, like, oh, it bent your guy like right into that signature move. It was awesome. Yeah,
that kick to the gut, man, that set up a lot of finishers for me back in the day. Right. Tecker at the T3KKER on Twitter says, a roundhouse kick from WrestleMania 2000, which, again, another move that I feel like underutilized.
Yep.
And finally, Chris Merzano says, the clothesline from hell. And we know how much I love that move if you watch GMP64.
Yeah, don't we all? But all right, this week's question is from Instagram, and it comes from friend of the pod, World Wrestling Flashbacks. Check out his Instagram page. He does insane edits with wrestling figures. Like, he'll copy game covers, or he'll copy like just moments from wrestling with figures. It's so cool. Like, he recently just did what's his name now? Malachi Black and Cody. It's pretty cool. But he asked, this is a little bit of a different one. I'm not sure we could definitively answer this, but what would you have done differently regarding the rollout of WWE 2K20 if we were given control?
So John needed to explain to me exactly what rollout meant, because I was just assuming that rollout meant like the development, but he's saying like it goes with like the release of the game. So my original answer was don't build it on the 2K18 engine, but if you can't fix that, game's already made, I would say patch it quicker, offer maybe like the first DLC pack for free. There's things that you can do to kind of add a little sweet to the sour, make it not such a bitter taste in people's mouths. So, free content, patches that actually come out sooner rather than later when the game's not out for 6 to 8 months before it finally gets a patch that fixes a lot of things, and then still the game is mostly broken anyway. To me, that's what I would do. Just address all the glaring issues that made the game unplayable.
Okay, agreed. So I have two ideas here. Maybe if they even pushed the game back 2 weeks, they would have that patch ready to go at launch. It would be much better than when people got it. There were some insane videos weeks, months into this game, like Charlotte Flair going through the ropes and hanging out in the ring, but only a torso. It was so weird. The ever so famous Bianca Belair's hair incident.
There's a lot.
Obviously, that's, I think, the obvious answer. Push it back a little bit. But what if they pushed it back even further? Now, something always tells me that 2K Battlegrounds was in the can. They already had it. I think it was what I mentioned to you, how they already had so much like video and photos of it, but with the old WWE logo. So maybe it has been there for a while and they were just waiting on like, oh, maybe we'll release this, maybe not. What if they pulled like an NHL where NHL had the regular game, but it also included NHL 94 with it, with an upgraded roster? What if they pushed 2K20 out, but they had Battlegrounds included in the game?
That's very interesting.
So,
or like in the game, or I guess it would have to be in the game. So I was thinking like maybe there's a way
you could literally cut
they could have
the whole story mode or whatever out of the game because it's not good anyway from Battlegrounds, and just put the game. You could have your pay to play features in there because there's a lot of them, and just make it part of 2K20.
That's very unexpected. That was not the answer that I was expecting you to give, but that is something, like you said, to sweeten the pot. That goes alongside with like what I said about the DLC. I mean, that's really upping the ante, though. It's a completely other like full game, but I mean, we've seen that before. NHL's done that.
Yeah, Madden.
It's not completely out of line for game companies to do that. I'm on board for that. I'd sign on.
Yeah, I think that would have been cool. But now we ask you, the listeners, what would you have done differently regarding the rollout of WWE 2K20 if you were given control? World Wrestling Flashbacks, message us on social media. We got some nice gamer grips and some stickers here for you.
All right, John. Well, we've covered the question of the week. We've covered gaming news. We've opened the show and did a little recap. Is it time for us to do our 100th deep dive?
I think it's time, George. I'm tiptoeing. Let's go.
Are you sick of drinking the same old boring coffee with the same old boring flavors? Well, Marks, it's time for you to check out Bones Coffee Company. Bones Coffee isn't just a drink that wakes you up in the morning. It's a full flavor experience. Small batch roasts that are made to order so that every order is guaranteed to be fresh. Unbelievable, all-natural flavors in every single bag. Some of our favorites are blueberry, paradise pie, and chocolate raspberry. But if you're not into the flavored coffees, they've got their single origin series featuring coffee beans from the greatest coffee growing regions in the world. Visit GameMarksPod.com/coffee to place your order and try the world's freshest small batch coffee.
George, before you start, I said earlier I listened back to our first ever episode. No structure. We barely knew each other. We didn't know what to talk about with the games. We didn't know what order and whatnot. I found the microphone I used that day. It's literally like an inch big. It's like a little condenser mic that I don't. It's honestly, when I bought it, it probably said podcasting mic on it. No. I think I lasted 2 episodes with it. We grew a lot in these 100 episodes. We grew from that. We both upgraded. I mean, I upgraded my microphone. You already had a nice one. I was playing with like the levels every episode. I think one episode I gave you a lisp accidentally because
we also learned that the closer that we get to the microphone, the better it is. So, we used to record, and I used to talk with my microphone like way back here. So this is how it would sound every episode, and then John would have to fix it. But then I learned that if I just bring the mic closer,
there was some
it sounds better.
Some episodes I think you had birds chirping. I think that's the lisp one. I tried to like edit out the noise gate. I tried to put the noise gate in there, and it gave you somehow gave you a lisp.
I used to hold out to how long I could put my air conditioner in.
Yeah,
and I was like, I'll just open the windows. I'll just like open every window, and she's like, birds.
Yeah, well, I'm struggling right now.
If you listen to the blooper reel, there's me getting sprayed with bug spray, and
maybe that might be my favorite moment of these past 100 episodes. The bug spray. Excuse me. Oh,
excuse me. The window's open. You're spraying me with bug spray.
That was the best. But yeah, we've grown so much. I think I will always say till the end of time, I think that Saturday Night Slam Masters episode that was it. That was the turning point. That's where we said, you know what?
Yeah,
we have to do way better here, and it showed. Like we did it. So look at us now, part of the Major Pod Network. No more humming and hissing, and we got good audio now.
Been a long road, and I think that both of us have learned a lot of new skills and improved greatly over the last 100 episodes.
But all right, take me through this game here.
All right, John, here we go. WCW vs. NWO World Tour. Released November 30th, 1997. Developed by Asmic Ace Entertainment and AKI Corp. Published by THQ. And this is released at the height of WCW's success in the Monday Night Wars. And this game is kind of a sequel to a game that we played, available in the archives, WCW versus the World for the PlayStation 1. And this is the first THQ wrestling game for the N64. And I mean, this game is the foundation for so many games that come after it. The Virtual Pro Wrestling series, WrestleMania 2000, Revenge, No Mercy. I mean,
hey, AEW is making a game based on
the
this
new
series.
AEW game. So Action Arcade draws inspiration from this series of games with their simplistic controls and the grapple system.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's crazy to think that this started on PlayStation with WCW versus the World, because I don't think of these games as PlayStation games. Now, yes, our artwork features that green greatest hits PlayStation graphic. Don't crucify me. That's what we're going to use going forward for all of them. I know it's an N64 game, but N64 didn't really have a cool definitive greatest hits thing. So,
yeah, I'm trying to see.
I don't
think they did.
No, but I just don't think of these games as PlayStation games. But I do remember playing WCW versus the World, thinking like, this just feels weird.
Yeah, there was something a little, I want to say janky, but like just like something that felt unfinished. Like in a lot of sense, it almost is feel like if you're very experienced with No Mercy and you go back and you play World Tour, I can understand how you could say the same thing about World Tour. It's just like there's a lot of things that they build upon over the course of the series, and I feel like that's what happened with WCW versus the World, is that they had this idea for a simplistic grapple system. It was intuitive, it was easy to play, just needed a little more polish. And that happened with World Tour. And then as you move throughout the series, the games just get better and more polished and with more features and bigger rosters. So, it's the natural trajectory for a game series.
Yeah, and did you happen to see that WWE on Fox put out AJ Styles' top 5 wrestling video games?
I did.
And he's a known gamer. He loves his video games. He brings on the road. He likes to play whenever he can. And number 1, Virtual Pro Fighter 2. Number 2, No Mercy. Number 3, WrestleMania 2000. Number 4, Revenge. Here's an interesting one. Number 5, Kings of Colosseum.
I can see that being in a lot of people's top lists.
It's just weird how like a direct Fire Pro game doesn't make it, but like the other Spike game, the lesser known Spike game makes it. But very THQ AKI heavy list there. So these games, everyone remembers them. Everyone wants to play them. How many times have we said, just even mentioned Revenge or No Mercy or any game in general, and someone's got to butt in with Revenge is the best game ever. No Mercy is the best game ever. It's like these are the games people want.
I want to say that I'm not that guy, but like, I feel like at my core, I'm that guy. Like I'm maybe not as aggressive about it because of the podcast, because I know
Revenge is the best game ever.
That my experience has been, a very interesting one in terms of games that I did not expect to like that I ended up liking, and games that I really expected to love and ended up hating. So I can't say that I'm really that guy anymore, but I understand it. We talk a lot about the nostalgia goggle factor, and that's like a big thing for a lot of people. So I get it. Makes sense.
Yeah, and age-wise, I think I would take the SmackDown series over this series. Not saying I don't like these series, but I would take SmackDown over it just because I played more of that.
So now here's the thing that I wanted to ask you about, and I was going to wait, but since you brought it up, it's a conversation that I want to have really quick. So the AKI THQ series of games starts with World Tour, goes through VPW, goes through Revenge and WrestleMania 2000, and stops at No Mercy. That's the AKI THQ series of games.
Right.
So when you say the SmackDown series of games, for me, I think it starts at the original SmackDown and goes all the way up to where the SmackDown vs. Raw series of games starts.
Right, so it goes up to Here Comes the Pain.
Okay, so I know people who I've talked to about this, and they consider the SmackDown vs. Raw games a part of the SmackDown series of games. And I don't agree with that, because they're like, but it says SmackDown. I'm like, but it's a completely new series.
So that they consider the 2K games part of the same series?
That was my argument.
Yeah, they all morph into each other.
It's at all kinds of like, there's a certain point where, like a new series starts. So you have the SmackDown series of games, then the SmackDown vs. Raw series of games. Then you've got the 2 or 3 WWE year games. Then you start the 2K series.
Yeah, I consider all of those, like even WWE 12 and 13, those are standalone. That's a separate series, and then 2K starts.
Yeah. And then 2K starts. Yeah,
100%.
That's in my head. That's the breakdown of games. But I just wanted to see where because you brought up the SmackDown series of games, I wanted to see where that qualification was.
Yeah, you know what? Anyone listening, if you want to share your take on that, let us know also.
All right, but other games. Let's talk about what else is out there at this time. So, in 1997, this game is released in November, but you also have All Japan Pro Wrestling featuring Virtua, which is a game that will be coming out soon. It's on the list of things that we have to play.
Okay.
That's released for the Saturn. You have WCW vs. the World for the PlayStation, and you have Virtual Pro Wrestling 64 that also releases for the N64. Now, that game only comes out a couple of months after this.
Yeah, and that being a Japan game, you see more people now talking about that game than obviously when we were growing up. But I think whoever got their hands on it, whether it was emulator or they were able to somehow rig their N64 to get it, I think most people do prefer those games to the WCW games.
And listen, little peek behind the curtain here. We have an episode already recorded for Virtual Pro Wrestling 64. We're just waiting for the right time to release it. So I'm very excited for when that episode is ready to come out, because that's got some good friends of the show. One who's been on the show before, and one who we've talked about but has yet to make their official debut on the podcast.
Yeah, we've been holding on to that one. But all right, let's go through these options here, because there's actually quite a bit here for an older N64 game. You have WCW versus NWO, which are 5-on-5 elimination matches. Obviously, WCW versus NWO. Then you have your exhibition. Now, we don't have our cages yet. We don't have our last man standing or whatever. Iron Man, it's only singles, tag, a handicap 2-on-1, and a battle royal, which typically in these games is 4 wrestlers. Now you have your League Challenge, which is a main single-player mode where a player competes against all wrestlers from the 4 promotions to unlock hidden leagues and wrestlers. And now you have just your league, which is a round-robin style league for up to 8 singles wrestlers or tag teams to compete against each other in. And then there's your tournament, which is a knockout tournament for up to 8 wrestlers or tag teams. Now, I noticed today we were looking through this because you want to, me and you run through one of these tags and put it out there on YouTube. I think that's a great idea, but they actually use like the Starcade logo and stuff. I like it. Like it's these little things that they just put in there that makes it cool.
Yeah, so my idea, maybe we'll do like the regular WCW one as the free video on YouTube, and then maybe we'll do like a Patreon exclusive where we run through the other 3. I think that could be a fun little series that we do.
Yeah, we haven't done anything like that in a while.
Yeah. But listen, I told you I was going to take the lead on this roster for you because you're feeling a little under the weather. So if you're ready to hop into this roster, I'm ready.
I'm ready, but first, we must hear a word from our sponsors.
We must. All right, so there are 4, technically 5, if you're counting the hidden, different factions for this game. Starting with WCW, you've got Lex Luger, Sting, Giant, not the Giant, his name is just Giant, Scott Steiner, Rick Flair, Ultimo Dragon, Dean Malenko, Eddie Guerrero, Rey Mysterio Jr., Chris Benoit, Steve Regal, and DDP as your hidden character for WCW. For the NWO, you have Hollywood Hulk Hogan, NWO Sting, which, John, I feel like I need to mention, has the quotes on his name because it's not the real Sting.
It's Jeff Farmer, yeah.
Then you have Buff Bagwell, Eric Bischoff, Scott Norton, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, Six, and Macho Man Randy Savage as your hidden character for the NWO. Then you have DOA, Dead or Alive. You have Sumo Joe, who is Genichiro Tenryu, Kim Chi, who is Koji Katao, Blackheart, who is Tarzan Goto, Pooch Tekka, who is Atsushi Onita, Hannibal, who is Hayabusa, Powder Keg, who is Kodo Fuyuki, Dim Sum, who is Jado and Gato, Saladin, who is Abdullah the Butcher, Alibaba, who is Tiger Jeet Singh, and Wrath is your hidden character for DOA.
I love that Abdullah has salad in his name. Just in his name.
Oh, God. All right, the Independent Union, IU. You have Black Ninja, who is the Great Sasuke, Shaolin, who is Jinsei Hakushi Shinzaki, the Unknown, who is Super Delphin. You have the Claw, who is Gran Naniwa, Black Belt, who is Taka Michinoku, Paco Loco, who is Dick to Go. Had to get it in there. Dick Togo. Shaman, who is Sunji Takano, Master Fuji, who is Yoshiaki Fujiwara, and Glacier is your hidden character. Now, once you play through all of the league challenges, you will then get the option to unlock Joe Bruiser, who is part of the Whole World Wrestling, WWW. Joe Bruiser is Muhammad Ali, and then you also get Black Widow, who is Manami Toyota.
All right, so honestly, what more do you need on this roster? You have WCW, NWO. It's before the NWO was split into 2, really, so I think it's cool. I think what you get is what you get, and it's really awesome. And your hidden wrestlers, kind of weird to not have DDP and Macho Man on like the starting rosters, but it gives you something to work for because those are 2 that you actually do want to unlock. Now, looking at their character models, I played as DDP earlier. He looks exactly like a Bash and Brawler from his like nose to like his weird puffy body.
Yeah, it's not a good representation of DDP at all.
But they never really fixed that through the history of these games. They kind of all have something wrong with like what the character looks like, whether it's arms not attached or weird stretched faces. I think personally, WrestleMania 2000 is the worst.
In terms of body shape?
Body shape and face scans.
Oh, I disagree with you so much on this. It's I can't believe that you're actually, if somewhere in Oshkosh, Swoggle's ears are ringing and he is ready to go full hot take on you. I think that No Mercy has the worst face scans of any game. I think that WrestleMania 2000 has the best face scans.
George, just look up Paul Bearer WrestleMania 2000 or Triple H WrestleMania 2000.
Listen, they're not all great, but the ones that are there, I feel like there are better ones in WrestleMania than there are in No Mercy.
All right, well, agree to disagree.
I would say, again, this is another just situation where it's an opinion, and you know what they say about opinions. But speaking of opinions, John, I would like to know your opinion on the artwork for WCW versus NWO World Tour. Iconic front packaging. I got to hear your thoughts.
Okay, we talked about this, obviously, 100 episodes ago, but this is... okay. On the roster, the Giant is WCW at this point. So he's on the left under WCW, and Hulk Hogan represents NWO on the right. Would it have made more sense, even though this is a beautiful cover, we all love it, we all know it, to put someone else under that WCW spot?
Are you trying to say that you wish that Sting was there?
Yes, in a way, but also DDP.
I can tell you why.
But DDP would have also been a great spot.
I can tell you why it's not Sting, and I can tell you why it's not DDP.
Tell me why. Shoot bop bop. Shoot
or
bop
at
bop.
least my guess. I would think that they wouldn't put DDP on the cover because DDP is a hidden character. And I would also think that you wouldn't put Sting on the cover because then it's black and white against black and white.
Okay.
So imagine Sting's there. You've got Sting with his black and white face paint against Hogan with the black glasses and the black and white headband, and he's got his gloves on. Like,
okay.
But
maybe
I
you know what?
could
Maybe
see,
Macho Man. But he's NWO too. Damn. Okay.
But he's on. Maybe you do Flair.
You know what do I know? Flair.
Luger?
Here's my thing. Okay, Mark is gonna kill me if he ever listens to this. Flair was not cool.
Oh shit!
Flair was a sick wrestler, the best, dirtiest player in the game. Obviously one of the best wrestlers to ever live. But to get a kid's attention on a wrestling game, you are not putting Ric Flair on the cover.
See, I agree with you that it should have been DDP, but now I'm trying to think, okay, you put DDP on the cover, you make him a regular, not unlockable character. Who do you put in his spot? And honestly, I think it's the Giant.
Or Ric Flair.
I think you... See, again, going to the same point. I don't know if Ric Flair is an exciting unlockable.
All right. Well, looking at the WCW roster itself, I didn't realize how small it was, and it's loaded with like cruiserweights, and we know that they were never getting a cover slot. But I guess I have to agree, Giant was the best option here.
Oh, I know. See, I kind of like the idea of switching Giant as the unlockable character, because imagine you're playing, and then all of a sudden you're like, holy crap, I just unlocked the Giant.
But in 1997, DDP wasn't DDP. Like the DDP we know. He wasn't that superstar yet.
Luger? Is Luger the big guy?
Yes and no. I wouldn't buy a game with Luger on the cover.
Yeah. Yeah, man. You listen, there's a reason that we're where we are, and AKI and THQ is where they are.
Yeah. Let's go to the back cover.
But let's back cover, John. Listen, it's been a while since we've had a good square screenshot of gameplay on a back cover. And this is just that. It's yellow background, like a sepia tone of the Giant giving a gigantic elbow drop to Scott Hall.
Actually, I like this cover. This back cover.
I think you've got... Is that Nick Patrick in the background as the ref?
Ooh, young Nick Patrick. It's possible.
I think so.
Could be. Someone will correct us.
All right, so the text on that big back cover says says matches this fierce are usually only seen on pay-per-view, and that is a review from GamePro. It also says over 40 wrestlers in all, including over 20 WCW and NWO superstars: Hollywood Hogan, Sting, the Giant, Lex Luger, Ric Flair, The Outsiders, the Steiner Brothers, Six, Dean Malenko, Eddie Guerrero, Chris Benoit, Scott Norton, Steven Regal, Rey Mysterio Jr., Ultimo Dragon, Buff Bagwell, Eric Bischoff, and many more. Each wrestler performing 30 to 40 moves, including his own signature moves, 5 different play modes, and tag team and simultaneous 4-player action.
It had it all. It actually had it all.
Yeah, and there's no BS. All these things, they're in the game. There's a lot of wrestlers. There's a decent amount of game modes, and it's signature moves. Can't really sign off on that one.
So that's what I was trying to tell you while we were playing. I think there is a way to do signature moves and finishers, but then when I was playing with Sting, I remembered that his regular moves are the Scorpion Death Drop and the Scorpion Death Lock, and I think that's what they mean. Like, they are just included in your regular moveset rather than your finisher, which is pretty odd.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's so easy to have an animation where, like, maybe it doesn't need to be the full thing. This is my hot take, or my one complaint with every wrestling game that Hulk Hogan's ever been in. You never get the full sequence right. His standing finisher has never, at least in this era of games, never like fully animated. You always have to do it yourself. They'll give him the big boot, they'll give him the leg drop, but there's no real way to make that your finisher. What I wish this game did is that you combined 2 moments where his finisher is the big scoop slam, and then he just leg drops right after the scoop slam. Doesn't need to hit the ropes, just scoop slam, leg drop, that counts as a finish. You get up. I think that's a simple animation. Those 2 things are already in the game, and at least his finisher is the leg drop.
Okay, yeah. But
not this weird spinning power slam that they gave him.
But we're in the era where they needed to give everyone like just a standing finisher, a down finisher, a back finisher. No matter what your move was, you needed to have it.
I mean, Scott Hall's finisher is a sit-out crucifix. It's not even the real Insider's Edge.
See, a lot to be desired with this game. But hey, it only evolved from here, so this was just the start of it all.
Foundation, stepping stones. But speaking of foundations and stepping stones, John, this game aesthetically lays the groundwork for a game that we spend a lot of time playing, No Mercy. So let's compare the difference here.
No, I don't want to do that.
In terms of the models and the general appearance, because I gotta be honest with you, at its core, it's not that different. They evolve over time and things look better, but like you put this game and No Mercy next to each other, the ring and the models, they look, you can tell it's from the same generation of games.
Yeah.
They just got better over time.
I think what the most improvement over time was the crowd. Because this crowd just looked like ants stirring under your feet, which was a little weird.
I don't even know. I can't discern a specific person in this entire crowd.
No, it's very odd. Very odd.
There's just so many things that I don't know. I feel like I want to be critical and say like, oh, the crowd is part of the immersion, but
no, this one's just straight up bad.
I can't say that because I have so many hours of my childhood played in this game, and I could not care less about the crowd. Now we have this podcast, we break down every aspect of it. So now obviously we pick apart the crowd, but for most of my life, I didn't care about the crowd. I just liked playing this game.
I'm sorry I did that to you.
A game that I would go back and play all the time.
I'm sorry I damaged you.
It wasn't you, it was the podcast. But let's talk about something that's cool and different, at least in terms of today's marketing for games, because you really don't see too many of these anymore, at least in like a retail setting. This game has a poster that, for the longest time, I thought was awesome. until we covered it 2 years ago. Because when we first played this, we talked about this poster. We're going to do it again because it bears repeating. You have a poster. It has Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, The Giant, and DDP. And they are very clearly trying to play this game, or so you would think. Except DDP and The Giant are looking at one screen, and it looks like Kevin Nash and Scott Hall are looking at a different screen.
This really bothers you, doesn't it?
It does, because the eye line just doesn't match up. It's just like, as a graphic designer, it drives me
George,
nuts.
it's 1997. This was probably in...
So there were still graphic designers.
Well, I gave it a pass. This is a cool-ass poster.
Someone made this poster, damn it.
And honestly, this poster will probably be on like my wall in my office one day.
Yeah, and it says, The Giant demonstrates his most devastating wrestling move. And you see the same text that appears on the back cover, a couple more screenshots, and that front cover with Hogan and Giant on it. I mean, I can't deny how cool this is. This definitely worked on me as a kid. I needed to play this game because of this poster. I can't speak so poorly about the poster. The eye line is really the only thing that bothers me.
It would. All right, but George, let's switch gears for a second because I think our guest is waiting. We are going to go to Brian from WCW Worldwide. We could not wait for this interview. I've said it 3 times already, maybe more. But without further ado, let's go.
For end of the show.
Game Marks Podcast, episode 100. We are joined today by Brian from WCW Worldwide. You have heard us talk about him many times in the past. He's even been on the episode in a short little snippet, but we finally have him here to ask all the hard-hitting questions about WCW. How are you, Brian?
I'm doing great. So right off the bat, I'll just say thank you guys for inviting me. I'm a huge fan of the show.
Oh, that's good to hear. You're the one.
I'm the one. I'm the only one. But also at the same time, I do know if Zack Ryder, excuse me, Cardona is listening, I know what an SNES game sleeve is. So
okay,
I have that knowledge.
All right.
I'm still a Sega guy through and through, but we've wanted you on this show for quite some time. We're also big fans of yours, big fans of all the stuff you do, whether it's your website, WCWWorldwide.com, where you literally lay out every single thing WCW, to even the article you put out with the developer of the unnamed WCW game, where you asked all the questions that we kind of wanted to ask, and we used the reference here on the podcast. So thank you for all you do.
You're talking about Stefan Reese, who found the game, right? The UWC game?
Yes.
Yep. Now, it's not just WCWWorldwide.com. There's also Wrestle Shop, which, John, you've had the pleasure of contributing some artwork.
Contributing artwork and purchasing there.
I was just going to say, there's also been some purchases made in the past, but I mean, listen, the shirts, the pins, the just the overall nostalgic kick that you get from what Brian and WCW Worldwide are putting out at WrestleShop.com is awesome. And if you're not already following, I mean, what are you doing? You listen to this podcast, you got to be following WCW Worldwide.
The stuff I put out there is, kind of on the down lows. So I'm glad you guys are pointing it out. But if you want to see anything I'm putting out, you got to follow me on Twitter. You got to follow me on Instagram. I put out a release for a shirt that I put pre-orders up. I imagine it'd be okay just to do it for, a couple days. And by the end of night one, I already had a little bit over 120 different orders. So I had to shut that down pretty quickly. It's a one-man operation over here mostly. So if you want to get in on some of these things, you really got to pay attention, I guess. Going
limited
forward,
drops.
Everything has got to be limited.
So what brought you to actually start seeking out all of this WCW stuff, like the scans that you put out? Because those are beautiful. I have some of those saved because I'm one day going to have a nice display of WCW stuff also in my house. And also just the shop in general. Like, what brought that upon? You were obviously a WCW guy growing up.
I mean, yeah, I was a WCW guy through and through, but there was a time where I was running a site called droptoehold.com, And part of our deal there, we would just do magazine scan. There was a Tumblr site. We just do random pieces of magazines and random photos and pinup art. And anytime you see anything with like a high res nice scan that has the Drop to Hold logo cropped in the corner, because I thought that was so cool, I wanted to make sure like our name got out there. Anytime you see that, you know, that was me. And a lot of that stuff's on Google Images all over the place. And eventually we stopped doing it. I stopped caring about it because it's just so much to try to keep up with everything that was going on in wrestling. And I was just burnt out and trying to watch like everything every week and try to have a take on things. And I just kind of wanted to go back a little bit and just take a break. And during that break, I realized I had collected all these WCW magazines. And at one point I tried to sell them on eBay because like, what do I need these things for? You know, maybe I could just take a break from all the stuff altogether. And like 6-7 years ago, no one cared about the magazines. I sold a whole run of 92 WWF magazines in 93 for like $20.
Wow.
And when I saw that, I said, oh crap, never mind. You know, I'm keeping these. I'm not making nothing on this. So I have all the WCW magazines save for maybe 3. And I'm not really looking for those either because like that's part of the thrill. The fact like I don't have the full collection, but I'm missing like 3, and if I come across them, yeah, I'll grab them, but like I'm not going to hunt them down. I'm just going to let them come to me. I want this, you know, to continue on going for a little bit. So once I realized I had all that stuff, I just started the site and upload magazine scans and just trying to be just a collection of World Championship Wrestling things.
And you're doing God's work by doing it. So thank you.
But listen, this whole conversation, this whole you being with us today spawns from one comment, from one opinion from our podcast to your to your Twitter page, and it was just us not giving World Tour, I guess, the recognition and appreciation that it deserved, and you were very quickly to just be like, hey, we got to talk about this. I kind of don't agree with what you guys said about the game. So we're like, all right, maybe there's going to have to become a time where we go back and we revisit this and we talk to you. And today is that day.
You called it dog crap. You pissed all over it.
Which one of us called it dog crap?
I remember specifically it was the guy, that one. You what's your name? That guy there. Talked about it and said, oh, this game is pure dog crap, don't play it. And I couldn't believe what I was listening to.
It was probably me. I
have to believe that it was you because I remember what I said about the game very.
And the other guy jumped in and said, yeah, I agree. This is pure BS.
Yeah, you think you did, George. So I had no nostalgia to the game.
No mercy for life. And then it just went off from there.
I had no kind of nostalgia to the game when we played it the first time, and I think I do appreciate it more now because I have played it so many times through the podcast and through Future Endeavored and all of the above. Is it my favorite? No. I still prefer Revenge if I'm going to play. I still prefer Mayhem if I'm playing a WCW game. Is it dog crap? Okay. It's not good.
You're hurting my head hearing that. Okay, I need a sec.
It's not good, but it paved the way for almost every wrestling game going forward.
Okay.
So I appreciate it. So
my take on it was that while I do own this game and I own my original copy from when I was a kid, the game set the foundation for the games that I would end up loving. I mean, the games that we love so much that we even have a YouTube show dedicated to one of the games. So, you know, you don't get Revenge or any of the Virtual Pro games or any of the, or sorry, vice versa. You don't get World Tour and No Mercy and Revenge.
All of them.
With the entire series without World Tour and Virtual Pro laying that foundation. So I appreciate it for what it is, but knowing what comes after it, I love the game for what it is in the time, but like it lacks so many features that you would get later on. So that was my argument. Yeah,
you're right. There's a lot of stuff in this game, particularly it would expand upon it in later editions. And like weirdly enough, Virtual Pro Wrestling 64 is they call it, like, I guess you can see it as the Japanese counterpart to this game, but like reality, it's almost like a half step up. There is stuff in that game
The licensed
that isn't a
wrestlers.
World Tour, but then like it's only I think 2 or 3 months apart from release dates. Virtual Pro Wrestling 64 is insane. There's I think like 40 or 50 more wrestlers. You have the ability to edit characters. You have the I think there's like a black and white mode. There's a vintage mode you can play where the screen goes black and white. And you got all these old legends in there like Bruiser Brody and Giant Baba and guys like that. You can have these old vintage looking matches. And that game came out like 3 or 4 months later, the World Tour. And it's, in my opinion, a better game. But back to World Tour, I enjoyed it because it's one of the first games that brought me back into the world of professional wrestling. For me growing up, it was the video games that helped keep me, I guess, in tune with what was happening in wrestling. I didn't have cable. So the only way I knew what was happening on the WWF television, it was either through Blockbuster, the tapes through Blockbuster, or whatever new video game came out. So that's kind of how I got updated on what was happening.
Okay, I could see that. I could definitely see that.
And
There's a lot of people from my age group. I think I'm a little older than you. I'm just turned 37. You guys a little younger.
Say
You're right around George's age.
I would say I'm going to be 35 in like 3 months.
I'm almost 32,
Okay.
so we're close. We're close.
Okay, yeah. So like from my age range, when this game came out, the way the system was set up, you got the 4 controller ports. You don't need to buy any kind of extra piece. You don't need to get anything different. You just need to have a controller in the video game. And now you got 4 guys playing all at once. The game was weird. The game was fun. The game was wacky. But these, when people are playing this game, I think a lot of people from my generation got introduced to WCW through this stuff. So I think that's also why there was like a strong fervor whenever I saw you guys, dogging on it, Johnny. Why there was such a strong reaction? Because like there's so many of us for this game in particular, like this was the beginning of the love for professional wrestling for a lot of guys.
Yeah, I agree with you. I start getting into wrestling around 93, 94. So I'm playing Super Nintendo games and stuff like that. And then going back and trying to get some of the older games for the original Nintendo. And then PlayStation 2 or Nintendo 64 comes out. And then World Tour comes out. And I'm like, wait a second. All right. I'm kind of into this. I remember very, very vividly like renting the system before we bought it because we wanted to see what it was like, because my parents were convinced that because the controller looked different than every other controller that had ever been created, that it was going to be the worst system ever. So we rented this game and 1080 snowboarding. And I think 1080 snowboarding was a good game, but I think I have so many hours logged into this game, just going through all of the championship modes with every wrestler, the unlocked guys. So like, I appreciate it for what it is. And I know exactly what you're saying. This was a huge introduction, like, because this is also back in the days where you're flipping in between the channels. So you're watching WWE, and then when that goes to commercial, you're flipping and you're going to watch WCW. So there's parts that you miss of each show, and the game kind of helped in fill in the blanks of like, oh, I heard this guy's name, but I couldn't put a face to the name, and now I'm able to do that because of this game. So I 100% agree with what you're saying. Like, it opened the door and was a way to fill in parts that you missed for wrestling.
Yeah. I'll say this also. When we first recorded that first episode, which I'll cover this on this episode also, and I just listened back to episode 1 and how trash it was. So we could trash the game. Our episode was trash. But I think we also didn't have like a direction of, the play it forever, future endeavor. Does the game hold up today? We kind of just went like, hey, is this game good? No, it's not good. All right, trash. Where now I think we appreciate these games for what they've done more, and I think we can see them with a little bit of a clearer eye now than 100 episodes ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like exactly what you just said, for me, it wasn't 1080 snowboarding. It was Wave Race 64, this game, and Wheel of Fortune. We had those rented out. We're going to play that all night. I had a sleepover, and this World Tour was the obvious winner. None of us were even watching wrestling at the time, but it hooked us. Like, that's how great this game as a video game itself is.
I think the controls were a huge part of that because it's such an easy game to pick up and kind of learn exactly what you have to do. And, obviously the system was good enough that it spawned so many games after it. And now people are going back in, 2021 to try and recreate that magic with the simplistic controls and try to figure out how they can, strike gold again with a control system as intuitive as this one.
And I was thinking about this game itself. I was, 96, 97? When did this game come out?
This comes out in 97.
Okay, so that's basically, I'm math, 13 years old, right there, 14, around that age. I'm not into the world of wrestling, but if I was an older fan who knew about professional wrestling, who knew about WCW, I can't imagine what that would have been like for those guys, because then you're playing this game. Okay, you got Hogan, you got Macho Man. That's cool. But then you've got the secret Japanese roster. Like, you have Anita from FNW in this game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what it is? You're going from in your house to this. Like,
yeah, you got a Hayabusa in an American wrestling game in 1997, and the game plays great. Like, that's insane to me. Like, if I was a pure wrestling nerd, this game would have been pure nirvana for me.
Oh yeah. Now the major, I guess the challenge for me was I thought that there was wrestlers that were called, Hannibal and Sumo Joe, and I thought like Black Widow and Joe Bruiser were like real people. I'm like, oh, this is so cool. I gotta find these guys. I can't wait to like see them on TV, not knowing that they were like counterparts to real people. I wasn't aware that was like how you got away with that kind of stuff.
George is tuning into Nitro each week. He's tuning into Nitro each week to watch a Powder Keg. When's Powder Keg coming out?
I'm waiting for Pooch Tekka.
Interesting game. I see. This is what I did like about these WCW games, though, because I vividly remember playing WCW versus the World on PlayStation, which similar, but it's kind of weird now going back and playing like one of these type of games on a PlayStation rather than an N64. But that kind of opened the world to me as a 10-year-old to all of these other wrestlers that weren't just who I was seeing on TV. And then some of them actually ended up being on WCW, on WWF, and you got to know them later on. So we thank these video games for a lot of our wrestling fandom.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
If you want to really get into the details, like look at this game, look at Revenge, track the sale numbers for both of these games, and then watch how professional wrestling as a whole starts to go up in ratings. There might be there's an argument there. There's an argument there.
I believe this is the second most popular wrestling game on the N64 behind Revenge. So yeah. I
think Revenge ends up as the number one selling third-party game. But that's also if you don't include Star Wars Racer, which came out with the consoles in a later life cycle. But beyond that, yeah, Revenge is still the king according to all the statistics. But that's late 98. Wrestling gets supernova, late 98, 99. It all tracks. It all makes sense.
Yeah, certainly. But okay, we want to ask you some questions now about your collection, about which games you prefer. George, I think you wanted to ask, if you had to kind of rate your WCW games in order, can you give us a top 3 or a top 5 or just your top picks in general?
Or maybe give your top 3 and then tell us what you think the worst one is, because obviously like there's some
and
ties in the middle there.
All right, top 3, Revenge is number 1. Like, I don't think there's an argument against that. It is such a strong game. It's got so many great things in it that looks exactly like the stuff you would see on television on TNT every Monday night. So just the way that translates into a video game, that's got to be number 1. That's the purest version of WCW you could get out there on a video game, I think. Number 2, I would probably say Virtual Pro Wrestling 64, to be honest, over World Tour as my number 2. I think that you got your whole WCW crew in there, with the exception of NWO Sting and maybe Eric Bischoff. maybe Glacier. I don't think those three are in the game. But then you've got the ability to turn Eddie Guerrero into Black Tiger, or Chris Benoit into the Pegasus Kid. You can make masked versions of those characters. You can wrestle with the Road Warriors and Vader and Bam Bam Bigelow, and
It's almost like a Fire Pro roster.
and Muta. But they're in the game. They're not weird edits. Everyone's in this game. Muhammad Ali, Tyson is in this game. Ken Shamrock is in this game. It's an insane roster.
You got my man Boss Rutan, who's in every Fire Pro game ever, but it's actually Boss Rutan.
Yeah, and I like that over Virtual Pro Wrestling 2. That's also a fantastic game, but like I don't know what rings. I don't understand what that stuff is. Like I never got into that much the Japanese side of wrestling, so like my fandom kind of ends whenever rings and the shoot fighting stuff starts over there. Okay, so that's number 2. Number 3, probably the original NES game. It's a classic, and that is the game that introduced me to wrestling altogether. So like that just holds a special place in my heart. Get real sappy on you.
How do you feel about Super Brawl?
Super Brawl is fun, ish.
Ish,
But you got to get like through the options. You got to turn it into 1 falls. Don't do 3 falls. That's dumb. And then you got to just give it some time to understand to play the game, because it's kind of complicated. It's not really easy to pick up.
I just
want
played
it to be good so bad.
We both just played it for our Patreon bonus show again, and we
I watched you guys could be completely bored with it. It was funny, like within the first like 2 minutes.
I couldn't figure out how to pin for like 30 minutes.
My problem is I think I even say it in the game. It's like the foundation of the game is not bad. It's just like like I feel like they just made weird choices to try to be different for the sake of being different, when like it wasn't broken. You just needed to build upon a wrestling game. You didn't need to try to like, okay, we're going to do this crazy camera angle and people are going to have finishers off the top rope that you can only hit when like the stars totally align, and like there's too many variables, and they tried to make it like too challenging when all they needed to do was just make like a solid wrestling game, and it would have been fine.
Plus, it also has Johnny Be Bad, and that's a plus for me. But it's not enough to overcome all the shortcomings of it.
The title screen, the character select screen is the best part of the whole game.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. All right, now what are your worst WCW games? I feel like I know what it's going to be, and I'm going to be upset. But
Legends of Wrestling, that's awful. The absolute worst, the absolute dog crap game for real. WCW Mayhem for the Game Boy Color.
Okay, agreed.
Okay.
What about Backstage Assault?
I was just gonna say, I'm surprised Backstage Assault isn't number 1.
There's some cool stuff in there. It's fun-ish. Like whenever you're running, there you can hit a button where your guy just falls flat on his face. Like that's hilarious. I don't know what that's for. But like you go running and he just trips, and like, oh man, he got a trip button in this game. Cool. I think I just unlocked Vampiro.
I just got Vince Russo, and yeah.
I was disappointed the fact that there was no Kiss Demon in Backstage Assault. That was one of the things I looked for as soon as I turned it on.
I guess there was copyright issues there somewhere.
Yeah.
However, Kiss was in Tony Hawk Pro. What was that? Underground or Underground 2? And they do play God of Thunder. Is that the song?
Yeah. Which was the Demon's opening theme. Like they should just be in this game. I don't know why it didn't happen.
Right. So they put it in a game, but not the right game.
Yeah. So I had to end up, renting Kiss Psycho Circus for the Dreamcast to get my Kiss fix.
Hey, we've also found the other Dreamcast guy. That one other one.
Yeah. You guys want to play some Sonic Venture 2? Come on over.
I might take you up on that.
We gotta get a crazy taxi tournament going.
All right, Brian, thank you so much for joining us. I know it was quick. We'd love to have you back one day to talk more WCW. Why don't you give us where we could find you all across social media, because you're doing such amazing stuff. We want everybody to know where it all is.
Okay, thanks, Johnny. You can catch me just online at WCW Worldwide. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook, and then the website, WCWWorldwide.com. There's just been a lot of different magazine scans going up lately. And I think next week is the anniversary. Well, when this comes out, around this time this comes out, there'll be the anniversary, the 25th anniversary of the NWO So I'm looking
baby.
at trying to do something with that. I don't know what exactly it's going to be. I've got like a 2,000 word draft I've had going over the past 4 years of just random quotes from people on the NWO. I need to clean this up and figure out what the hell this is going to be.
Huh. That's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
I've just been accumulating it. I don't know what happened. I just kept on doing it and just I'll listen to the podcast. I'm going to write this down. I'm going to transcribe. It's insane. It's stupid. Like, what was I even thinking? Half the things I wrote out, all the links I put up as my sources, they're all expired. They're all gone. The podcast don't even exist anymore.
No.
All right.
You also have a Patreon page, which patreon.com/WCW Worldwide. Definitely join that. It's all different levels of memberships. And again, thank you for coming on the Game Marks podcast for episode 100.
Thank both you guys. Thank you, Johnny. Thank you, George. Keep on doing what you do. And this podcast is great. And it's not like any other podcast out there. It really is a fun show.
I appreciate it. Thank
that.
you very
Yeah,
much.
Thank you.
All right. A huge thank you to Brian from WCW Worldwide for coming and hanging out with
But
us.
George.
That was, like John said,
Did you know? Did you know once a player has earned every championship, they unlocked WWW, a longer challenge consisting of wrestlers from all 4 promotions, the championship match being against another hidden wrestler, Joe Bruiser.
Did you know World Tour is the second best-selling wrestling game for the N64? The first is WCW NWO Revenge.
Did you know this game is currently on eBay for $10.99 and goes all the way up to $150 near mint and $859 sealed? All right, sorry to cut you off. We actually had a really good time talking to WCW Worldwide, and we would love to have him back.
Rude,
We would love to
John.
have him back here again one day. So, Brian, the invitation is always there to come back.
Absolutely. Maybe we'll see him again for when we go back and revisit Revenge.
Ooh, I like you.
All right, John. But listen, 100 episodes. I've had to deal with you for 100 episodes.
Poor thing.
And I appreciate every week that you give me this opportunity to, put cucumber slices over my eyes, get a little mud mask going, relax while you take me through some R&R for some ratings and reviews.
All right, I don't think we did this on our first episode, but Game Ranking gives this game a 75%, EGM with a 6 out of 10, Game Fan with a 79 out of 100, Game Pro 4.125, there you go, out of 5, GameSpot with a 5.7 out of 10, Hyper with an 85 out of 100, IGN with a 7.5 out of 10, Joypad with a 6 out of 10, N64 Magazine with a 70%, Nintendo Power 7.9 out of 10, and ONM with an 86%. Pretty damn good ratings. Now, WCW versus NWO World Tour ended up being one of THQ's biggest hits and was awarded the title of Fighting Game of the Year by the Academy of Interactive Arts and Science.
It's been a while since we've had an average rating.
Oh yeah, you're not a fan of those, huh? It's okay. It's okay.
I mean, it makes sense. It's been a while since we've had one. We're going back to the first episode. Of course, it's got a 4.125. I'll say this, though. The ratings are consistent with how we feel about this game. There are some aspects that are great, and there are some aspects that are not so great. But you cannot deny the impact that this game has had. It's just iconic.
Yeah, I agree. We've said it a million times. It's just paved the way for, I guess we can't say better games, but similar games that just kept evolving.
Yeah, but listen, I think it's time for us to go and talk about that weekly tournament that we like to do here called Clash at the Feast.
All right, for this week's episode, head to youtube.com/GameMarksPodcast where you'll see us play World Tour 100 episodes later. Last week, we played WWE Raw 2. Now, this was to settle the first tally the first month. You picked Brock Lesnar. I picked Eddie Guerrero. Brock took the win. It was a street fight. Triple H made his way to the Hell in a Cell like it was Bad Blood, and Kevin Nash, Big Daddy Cool, came out.
Like it was Bad Blood. I was in dress pants.
Well, they had their Hell in a Cell at Bad Blood.
I was in slacks and a button down. That's not how I remember that match.
He's always ready to work. But Triple H took the win. George took the first tally. What was it? 4-3. All right, whatever. George wins the first month. Now, before you do your whole little thing and send to your music, last time we played WCW versus NWO, Clash at the Fees didn't really exist the way it did now. We kind of just played one game and called it a day. George picked the Giant, I picked Hulk Hogan, and he wiped the floor with me. So head to YouTube and see how things changed 100 years later. 100 years, oh my God.
Is that how long it feels that we've been doing this podcast? 100 years later.
100 episodes later.
Leave all of that in.
I have died every day. Oh, that's 1,000 years. I can't get it right. All right, John, listen. Normally this is the part where you ask me to tell you what we're playing next week, but next week we are playing a Patreon picked game, and I really want you to read this name. Okay, next week, thanks to Megamark Brett Van, we are playing, let me get another cough drop, Wrestling Universe Fire Pro Women Dome Superstar Female Big Battle All Japan Woman vs JWP. I believe that's the whole title.
I believe that this game actually has a shorter name.
Yeah, we're going to call it Wrestling Universe.
Yeah. It is for the PC.
All right, but I think I've had enough here for our 100th episode until we meet again on number 101.
I'm so excited that you read that. That was like the cherry on top of 100 episodes was you reading that longest.
Yeah, well, you're reading the roster for that game. Take us home.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for us this week on the Game Marks Podcast. Please check out our merchandise at GameMarksPod.com/shop and join us on Patreon at Patreon.com/GameMarksPod. It is the best way besides listening to support the podcast, and be sure to follow us on all forms of social media at GameMarksPod. Leave us a review and a rating on Apple Podcasts and subscribe to wherever great podcasts can be found. Thank you very much for hanging out with us this week. John, do that thing.
Game over. Marks. At least you don't make me say something stupid anymore.
Game Marks Podcast, put them on the radar. Playing rare games, Sega Saturn, no Game Shark. Johnny and George work hard and they play hard. Future endeavor games and put them in the graveyard. From the deep dive to the Clash at the Feast. How can I get more? That's question of the week. Follow on Twitch, there's nothing that they won't play. Game Marks Podcast every single Monday.